Okay, welcome to the program, folks. November the 26th, and you're with the Editor-in-Chief live. Hi, everybody. I'm Duncan, Garner. Welcome. And today's podcast breaks from the traditional format of going out live at 7 p.m. And it's also different because it contains just one interview and nothing more than that. It's an interview I did with former National MP and Deputy Leader of the party, Nikki Kaye, in August 2023. She was upbeat. She was looking well and keen to get on with her new business ideas, yet just over a year later, her cancer would return, and she has sadly died, aged just 44, after a long battle with cancer. As someone who got to know politicians well, I found Nikki Kaye to be a friendly, empathetic and deep-thinking New Zealander, and I held her in high regard. She was a social liberal. She supported Te Reo Māori in schools, and she loved the environment and wanted to save the world. Her parents split up when she was young. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, aged just 36. She was a tough woman, but she was also a very private person. I sat next to her at the Barack Obama dinner in Auckland when he was out here, and she kept me well entertained all night with down-to-earth chat and laughs, and I certainly won't forget that. As a tribute to her, I want to replay the interview I did with her a year ago. Rest in peace, Nikki. So many people had so much respect for you, and the tributes today have been flowing. I personally feel really sad about your loss, and I want to honour you by posting your interview with me from August last year. Nikki Kaye, former politician, former National Party Deputy Leader and MP for 12 years. And also, of course, you'll know her from her high-profile battle with breast cancer. She has been out of Parliament now for a number of years. What's she been up to? Where's she been? What she's doing? She's always been in the educational and environmental space. And the last time I caught up with Nikki, I was sitting next to her at the dinner we had when Obama was in town in Auckland. And that was the last time I saw her a number of years ago. Where's she been? What's she up to now? What's her take on all things politics? I know she's reluctant to get into politics. It's been really hard to get her into the studio, but producer Dave, he's persistent and he makes sure that he gets the people, and he's convinced Nikki to come and sit down with us to share her journey, her story and what she's up to now. Nikki, g'day, nice to see you. How are you?
Good. Yeah, really good, actually.
Nice to see you. Nice to catch up.
Yeah, it's nice to see you. I think I'm more relaxed than I've been in many, many years.
I bet you are. And why is that?
Oh, I think I'm really enjoying some things that I'm doing. I think I've learnt a few skills like self-care that I never was very good at. And so, yeah, life's good.
What is self-care? Because you look relaxed and you look good. You look healthy.
Thank you. Everything from nutrition, exercise, spending time with mates. It's just that balance for which I think obviously the former job was pretty brutal in terms of hours and stuff, but I sort of feel more balanced than...
I bet you do.
Yeah.
It's not conducive because you were in Parliament. How long were you in Parliament for?
For 12 years.
Yeah, it's not conducive to a long career in Parliament, is it?
It has.
Life.
I think the nature of... I always say to people, there's so many people to help, and I think because I was a helper, right, different personalities, different characters, it can be pretty full on, and so it is long hours. Yeah, it's long hours.
You were Auckland Central MP.
Yes.
You beat Jacinda, that's right.
Yes.
Is my memory serve me right there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's always something you can have forever. Good on you. Hey, so you left Parliament. How did you cope with that initially? Because you were so busy, and then suddenly you're not, right? Does the phone stop ringing?
Yeah, it stops ringing in the sense of particularly when you don't answer it for periods of time.
I know
I made a bit of an art of just basically having complete what I call detox for a period, and COVID obviously enabled that. I think, initially I found it hard in that I had really given my life, like I was 40, I'd given half my life to politics, and that I'd gone and worked overseas for a bit, but I'd been involved in the National Party since a young nat. I sort of woke up single. I woke up with obviously just processing the scale of the health stuff that I had been through and had treatment in office. And then, as I think I've said before, my health isn't perfect. So I sort of had what I'd call the midlife crisis. And then obviously just the messy exit. So it was an interesting period. Yeah.
Your health, you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You say you use the words, it's not perfect. You do use those words deliberately? How was your health?
Yeah, I mean, I basically, I say it's okay, but I have always said it's not perfect, and I have never really gone into further detail on that, just because the privacy aspect for me, both in terms of work and a whole lot of other things, I prefer to have a bit of privacy around
And
that.
health is a deeply personal thing too. So if I ask you, are you in remission?
And I'd just say my health isn't perfect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, lots of people have different varying levels of cancer, but I think the thing I'd say is I remain grateful. Like, one of the things about a threatening or serious illness is, and I often say this to people, I've said it many times before, and I've recently been helping someone who's in hospital. In this time of trauma, or you see this extraordinary beauty, and so I choose to be grateful. But I always say to people, I live like I've got 12 months, but I think like I've got 30 years. And
so you're living life fully.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it was something. If anything, I was in a bit of a hurry, and always did. But now I think slightly differently about how I choose to spend my time.
My mum's 76.
Yep.
Or was it 75? She'll kill me for 75, and I said 76. But she had cancer, breast cancer.
Yeah.
13 years ago. And she has taken every opportunity since to live her full life. She says no to not much.
Yeah.
And I think I saw a real change in her, and I've lived that journey with her alongside her. Remarkably strong woman.
This ripple effect on all the people around her as well.
But it does have that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are you in touch with the Cancer Society? Do you do things for them?
So the Breast Cancer Foundation, I'm actually in touch with a number of the organisations, but primarily the Breast Cancer Foundation, Arlene and Justine, the chair, amazing. In fact, I was at a launch of their Pink Caravan the other day. I mean, the broad points that I'd make around breast cancer is it impacts and affects so many people. There's more that needs to be done, both in terms of screening. I mean, we've had a backlog of mammograms since COVID. The Breast Cancer Foundation do some really interesting projects that are focused on, they don't intend to deliver them in the long term, but they're focused on awareness. They're focused on, there's issues around compliance, around hormone therapy, from a prevention perspective. They do a really great job, but their goal is to have 0 deaths from breast cancer, which is a really lofty goal.
Huge goal.
But certainly, whether it is the extension of screening to 74-year-olds, whether it is getting through the backlog of mammograms, whether it is improving the way that we look at screening through artificial intelligence. They're doing some amazing work, and I'll continue to help them.
And research is so important in this space.
Yes,
with all cancers, I know, but research is the answer. When people give money, it actually helps because it goes to future.
Yes.
My dad died of cancer, and the cancer that he died of, he had 9 months to live. He had 9 months.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you'd live another 3 or 4 years. That's what an oncologist told me, which is that's one way of looking at research. It works.
Yes. The one thing about that, though, and I think Rachel Smalley, but a range of other people have raised
some great work,
have raised the issue of access to medicines, and so
don't get me started.
Yeah.
That's appalling.
Yeah. So and again, as I've said to you before, I try and, in this particular lens of history, stay out of the election campaign.
Yep.
But what I would say is that as someone who knows the system, the inequity, and the fact that some people will have more time with their families and live longer because they can afford some drugs. But the scale of inequity around the cost that some people are paying is just,
So I've looked deeply into this as well.
Yeah.
And Australia has 100 more and different drugs than we do because they fund them.
Yeah.
We could have those drugs. It's just a priority issue. We don't fund them, so we don't have them. So people die in New Zealand. People die in New Zealand that survive in Australia 3 hours away.
Yeah.
That's brutal, isn't it?
It is. And it's, I mean, obviously there's a Pharmac review, but there's multiple mechanisms around access to treatments and drugs. Some of it is about the registration process and how long it takes for some drugs to be registered in New Zealand. Some of it is around just the quantum of funding. Other is around lack of access to clinical trials where some people could get access to drugs. There's a sort of complex range of issues, but certainly I feel very strongly that it's a weeping sore.
Because when COVID happened, we basically printed money, quantitative easing. We just let the handle loose, and we printed money, and we threw tens of billions of dollars at the issue, and corporate welfare, all sorts of things to keep the country afloat. Why isn't cancer treated as such a crisis when it is for families?
Well, so I'd make a couple of broader observations. The system, again, as I've said to you, I stay out of that active day-to-day politics because I try and, in the areas of the environmental and education areas that I work in, I really want to work in a non-partisan way.
To that, yeah.
Work in a non-partisan way.
Yeah.
But I'd say that my observation, Duncan, is that there are some systems in New Zealand for which we have not been as good as we could be at analysing those systems, right? So, and they need long-term enduring partnerships between the politicians and the policymakers.
You need, basically what you're saying is you need all MPs to be on board.
Yeah, you do, and you need to have a real focus on those systems, and some of them. And it's difficult when you're dealing with like pharmaceutical industries, all these different things. But basically, the New Zealanders we're an incredible nation. But I think the more that we can, instead of like tearing different people apart from different sides of the spectrum, the more that we can become experts in system change, then the better.
Depoliticise
aspects of
policy.
Yeah. I mean, there's some things that should be very enduring, and they just, and I know lots of people talk about this, but that's the implementation, but they just, I mean, the environment is one area. I would say access to treatments and medicines, because of the kind of complexity of different parts of the system, you need everyone pedalling in the same direction, and you need a real commitment over a long period of time.
Do you think that we have this? We've got a very adversarial system. We've got a Westminster system. It's a system based on you oppose me and I oppose you, and we will never see the light of day because we're set up to oppose each other. How do we ever get agreement on something that is life-changing and life-extending when we have a system of...
I reckon there are a couple of things, and I actually ended up contributed to a book on public policy. We have some mechanisms which could be used more as a select committee process, in my view. Actually, I mean, I came into Cabinet on the back of a 21st century learning inquiry that was cross-party with people like Tracy Martin. Yeah. We have some mechanisms that could be used more, right? I think the second thing is...
Female MPs. They appear to get on better. It's true.
The second thing is, my experience of New Zealanders is when they want something, right, and it's visible, as a small country, the politicians can move pretty quickly. And so I think this sort of ability, I mean, we've got to get through the election, I think, campaign. It's much more difficult to probably have some of those deeper policy conversations, but post that, I think really being intentional in requiring us to think through, and in fact Todd Muller said it the other day as Parliament, similar comments, but thinking through where are there enduring areas of policy that really require people to be non-partisan. I'd argue that environment is one
change.
Of them. Well, we people talk about the pivot, where this kind of crucial moment in history where we've got obviously climate change, but species reducing at a rapid rate. I actually think we also have technology and a whole lot of other things. So I'm always going to be an optimist, right? I sort of feel we have the technology and the data and the whole lot of other things that we've never had before, robots, various things, that really we can pivot. I mean, I'm always going to be an optimist.
We should be doing that now, though.
Yeah.
Like the time is, like we've even just yesterday on the podcast we had James Renwick, climate scientist, one of our best international climate scientists, who painted the picture of if we don't get it right. Yeah,
and that's one of the things that I'm going to give a fair bit of my time to, and that is nature rebuild with programs with young people and other organisations, because I think in the area of particularly restoration around water, anything that we can do in terms of plants, saving species, because as you know, I was out at the Noisies recently, and we asked the question, why can't we see where are the birds? And we've taken aspects of their food chain. So I think this ability for New Zealanders, I think, as much as possible to understand ecology and nature rebuild, that's something that I'll be very focused on.
So I'm with you on this.
Yeah.
15 years ago, under the Harbour Bridge, you'd catch a kahawai.
Yeah.
Tonight, you wouldn't catch one.
Yeah.
Last night, you wouldn't catch one.
Yeah.
10 years ago, I was in the bush in Fiordland. There were no birds.
Yeah.
There were no birds because 1080 hadn't been dropped in there, so we had ferrets in the stoats and they'd run wild and we had no birds.
Yeah.
There was no canaries,
Yeah.
the chorus or whatever that James Cook talked about.
Yeah.
There was nothing.
Yeah.
Our world is changing so rapidly.
Yeah, and so I think there has to be a pretty significant pivot. The great thing about New Zealand, and that we've got some natural advantages. One is we've got land, we've got a number of endemic species. We've also got, I would argue, Māori and iwi leadership have huge knowledge, experience and kaitiaki around various systems.
Do you think, and Rahui as well, do you think New Zealanders understand that?
I think some of them do. I think there's huge innovation happening in the area of sort of nature restoration, but it's not necessarily visible to a whole lot of people. I think that is, again, I'm going to be involved in this area, but the next couple of years, the more that we can not only highlight those people who are doing great stuff in terms of nature rebuild, I'll be very focused on ocean regeneration, coastal, but the more that we can highlight and scale up that restoration, better for water quality, better for grandkids being able to see species, better for climate change, it's all good.
I see this, I'm on the water quite a bit and I see it.
Yeah.
And there are fish now that are hungry in the Hauraki Gulf. So they're white fleshy, they look strange.
Yeah.
People aren't catching as many at the moment.
Yeah.
Down on the mussel farms, you'd usually get 50, you get 3.
Yeah.
So there's something going on. There's in there. I've noticed with the water temperature increasing, there are different species in the water.
Yes.
And so the whole thing in the last 5 years to me has really changed. And that's from a perspective of just a layman on a boat all the time on the water.
And so I think, there was an ocean roadmap released the other night by Rebecca Mills and Sir Chris Mace. Sir Peter Gluckman was there, Dame Salmond. I think we have some very good people who understand the way forward, but we are all, and I say we are all, it can't be left to a group of policymakers, it can't be left to even...
People need to be taken with them.
That's right.
You've got to take people, you've got to explain it. We need science shows on TV.
Yeah. Well, I think the capacity to execute large-scale restoration and nature rebuild, I mean, the thing is as well... It's not only the right thing to do for saving species, for reducing or improving the situation in terms of climate change, for natural enjoyment, but also the world will... We have the 4th largest EZ in the world in terms of ocean area. The world will expect that from us, and so there's actually a pretty amazing opportunity.
So we do
for
need
us
to lead rather than follow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so what are you personally doing in there?
Well, so I'm set up a trust and we've got some pilot education programs that will launch next year with a couple of schools, but are very focused on those young people using science and technology, new tech, to be able to both show where we need to rebuild in terms of particularly around water restoration, and then they will also undertake restoration projects. So take a stream on Great Barrier, they'll be involved in that.
Right. I think this is so critical and so crucial. I was at Milford Beach recently with the tide really low.
Yes.
And as a kid, I recall crabs being everywhere and all this sea life around the rocks.
Yes.
So the other night when I was there, and it was really low tide, really low, as low as it would go, I saw nothing.
Yeah.
And that's 40 years ago. So the difference is when I was 5 now, I'm almost 50. How's that? What am I seeing there? Why aren't I seeing anything? Is it just... what's happened in 50 years? Quite a lot?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of different things happening to different species, but we've certainly lost various species. What I would say is, I have had similar experiences where I was like, why do I like Great Barrier so much? And then
old school.
I was like, what I'm out on the barrier, I feel very, very relaxed, very at peace, and then I come back into other parts of the city, and then I was like, oh, I get it. There's life. There's life on the barrier.
Yet there's no population.
Well, in the city, if you listen in parts of the city, when you try and listen for the birds, and it doesn't it does happen in some parts of the city. So, I think. I think, as I say, we're in this pivot of history. New Zealand has many leaders, and certainly my view is some of them just need additional support. I reckon New Zealanders will be pushing on an open door in terms of additional nature rebuild. We're going to need to anyway for climate change, but also there's a whole lot of other reasons around water quality that we need to do this stuff.
Yeah, no, I think water is critical, and if you go anywhere near the water, you'll know what you're talking about. Population? Do you have a view on New Zealand's population? Because we keep getting bigger, right? We keep trying to fit people in and go up and have more houses.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm not as fussed about that. From I guess my perspective is. There's some really interesting stuff in other countries. Like someone was telling me the other day about Bhutan that have ecological corridors. You can do various things with space and nature in a very clever way, and I think quite a bit about that, which is we shouldn't just be thinking of the traditional model as to where creatures and species grow.
I like this because you look at Māoridom at Āhui works. COVID was at Āhui. COVID stopped industry, and you see the water quality bounce.
Yeah. Yeah.
You saw it right the way through different species, and all people reported this.
Yeah. Well, I sort of have this dream, which is, I'm just happy to be one person along the ride, but where every young New Zealander, but I would also argue there's a number of older New Zealanders that could be involved in this rebuild. Many young New Zealanders have some experience in on-land restoration, but I have a view which is a lot of people can't see the scale of damage that's happening in the ocean area and our waterways.
You don't see it.
Yeah, that's right. And so the more that we have young people involved in that, it's good from a mental health perspective, it's good for saving the planet, and that's certainly what I'll be spending a fair bit of time on.
Because very few people go into the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And my mates who dive report all sorts of changes.
Yes. It's sort of, I've been connecting with a range of organisations, and what I'd say is that whether it's Live Ocean or Blake Trust, there's some really good organisations. Some of it is about scaling up the support for them.
Yeah. Are you involved in anything else? Out the barrier? Or?
So obviously I'm on the board of AUT Ventures, so that is the organisation that sits off AUT, which has given me a bit of an apprenticeship in startup companies. That's been a really good experience. I'm a patron of the McGuinness Institute, so part of the sort of learning and work that I've been doing around oceans and water, Wendy McGuinness, who's the head of that institute, I do things like I do still do a fair bit of community work. So like I'm an ambassador for Give Out Day for the LGBTIQ community.
Yeah.
So just a plug for them. They've got their matching fund day on the 8th of September. I also I have my own consultancy in the area of education technology. So I have been involved with various projects, including proposals for an innovation school. I do a little bit of work between here and America on that.
What's an innovation school?
Well, basically, in one of the projects that I mentioned in the area of blue nature is going to have a bit of that, which is how do we get young people, particularly secondary students, having more experiences involved in technology while they're at secondary school.
It's crucial.
So
this is tomorrow's jobs.
That's right. So we have trade. You think of a trade apprenticeship scheme. One of the pilots that I hope that I'll deliver next year is a group of students doing social impact projects in blue restoration, but that they'll spend hopefully one day a week in town, and that is about immersing them in expanding their life skills, but also being involved in technology. So
this needs to be in every school.
Yeah, well, I think
it really does.
I think this concept of providing more opportunities in the senior years for students to be around both technology companies and community organisations are certainly, it's something that I've believed in for quite a period of time.
Yeah, because you were Education Minister, weren't you?
Yeah, that's right. So
how well placed are our students in our schools?
Oh, look, I think
worry about
that, well, yeah, of course. I mean, I don't think you ever, I was a very short-serving education minister, but I was associate minister for a period. Of course, I mean, it's another area whereby you have to take a pretty long-term view to get enduring change. I think we have some incredible educators, leadership. I think, again, this ability to, an education system, when you plan an education system, you have to think long time frames because you're training those students and giving them a set of skills for what might be 15 years.
Pigs. As a parent, I think my kids have always been guinea pigs.
Yeah.
The chop and change of administrations.
Yes.
And it pisses me off.
Yeah.
You can't be consistent, so we don't get great change.
Yeah. And look, I think there are some bright lights where there's been collaboration with different political parties. It's obviously, again, I'm just really conscious of staying out of the election campaign.
Yep.
But I think you can see from the work that I'm doing in both, I'm doing work in the education environment area and a bit around things like breast cancer. But everything that I do, while I'm very loyal to my roots, I'm a former national deputy leader, is about working across the spectrum because I feel like we're in this period of history where a lot of people are under pressure. The planet's under pressure, people are under pressure, and what is needed is, people they're peddling the financial stuff. There's a delayed hangover from COVID, so we've got a few social cohesion issues, and people, in my view, there's a bit of a lack of tolerance out there as well for a range of things, and that comes back to a bit of stress. And so everything that I do will be about long-term system change, and everything that I do will be about working with people who may have completely different views to me to make that happen.
You need to work across party lines.
Yeah.
It's no longer about politics for you. Do you think you can be more influential outside of Parliament and what you do and what you've set up than you ever were in Parliament?
I'm proud of my political career, but I certainly do believe that, and I would never be as arrogant to say that I could make that scale of impact, but I certainly do believe that the nature of the lens of history, there will be a range of community organisations, businesses, community leaders and young leaders that could make larger changes than some people in politics. And so I certainly, if I live for a long period of time, I'm having another crack at impact. Like that's what I didn't necessarily know that I would want to do that. And part of, I always have the health stuff hanging over me, but I love my country. I feel very, very focused on doing anything possible in education and the environment to help improve the situation.
Does the task feel almost too big? You're one person, you're lots of people around you, you bring people with you, I know you do. But does the task sometimes, do you wake up some days and think, shit, this is so massive, how am I going to achieve something even small?
I'd say a couple of things. One is, as you know better than anyone, the flip side of trauma, and I've had a fair bit between health and politics and all those things, is that if you are able to move through it and get through all of the crap, basically, then there's some resilience that you have. So I certainly feel more equipped and stronger than ever to be able to assist with some change.
I know that feeling.
So that is the so I've got probably more resilience than ever. I think I truly believe this, Duncan, and something I learned from the former job is that long-term system change, it doesn't just come from the politicians. The shift in cultural mindset that can happen from the public, from community organisations, from business organisations, can pivot a small country pretty quickly. The challenge that we've got, and that I meet people in airports, I meet people in the community, is that I think we've got burnout, right? We've got financial challenges, and we've got a bit of a hangover of COVID. And as a former civil defence minister, when you have an earthquake or a tsunami, you can see the sort of scale of destruction. And I think what we've got happening here is that you've got bits of polarisation and a whole lot of other things for which we need to acknowledge that people are under pressure.
I think we're grumpy, and there's also intergenerational warfare.
Yeah.
People pointing the finger at different generations. There's unequal wealth distribution.
Yeah.
And that creates all sorts of issues. And I think that we're in not a great way.
Yeah, but here's some good things. Like, I believe in some good things. One is I do think we've got, while our system of democracy is not perfect, we've got compared to other countries, we've got a democratic system. Second thing is we are abundant, as you can see in other disasters that are occurring across the world. We have water. We have food. We may have distribution issues in terms of food. I would also argue, and I know that some of the stuff sounds a bit cheesy, but that New Zealand is, when we travel and also when we're here, many of us can multitask, and we have also people who want to come here, like from all over the world. And so I think, and someone read it recently was talking about the pivot, but I think I do not underestimate the scale of the task, and I do not underestimate the number of people that feel under pressure. But I think I just have this view that a small critical mass of people can change quite a bit.
I reckon you're right, but you mentioned it earlier about community. Yeah. And I don't need you to take a view on politics unless you really want to, but the problem with us right now is that this government centralised everything, brought it all back and said, we know best. And they didn't bring business with them. They didn't bring community with them. They left out people. What you're talking about today is bringing together a package of things. You need government, you always will. You need business, you always will. Corporates have power. They have huge influence and a reach. You need community, because without community, the people on the ground won't do it. You bring those three together and New Zealand can do anything. Yeah. Like, we're really powerful then. I think that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think, I would say, and again, I humbly say this because, again, I'm one person with one opinion, but the nature of social media, a whole lot of different things that are occurring. What I have seen is a lot of people who lack deep emotional connection. There's a lot of loneliness out there, and there's a lot of people who, in part due to COVID, but also just because things are harder at the moment, for which they are not either getting that deep emotional connection or the community links are broken. So I truly believe that and then you've got community leaders that are completely burnt out, right? Because they've been through hell and back.
It's interesting you say this. I've just done, before I interview you, I interviewed a woman, a New Zealander who's overseas looking at mental health. Yes. And she said exactly the same thing as you just said. Yeah. Which is now starting to pile on top of each other, which is people that are lacking connection. Yeah. Loneliness has now been put up as a real issue, the next big issue from the WHO. Yes. And loneliness is different to being alone. Yes. Loneliness is different, definitely. Yes. So, and I've suffered this a couple of times in the last 4 or 5 years. When everything disappears from me, the sound is really violent. Yeah. And it's dark and deep. Yeah. And loud. Yeah. Yet there's no sound at all. Yeah. So I think New Zealanders have, post-COVID, haven't returned to where they were. Yeah. Which is an issue. Yeah. It's often, as you will probably know, when trauma occurs, it's people can survive many things, but it's when there's they get multiple hits. And so when you've, as explained to me by a young woman the other day, she wanted to talk politics, and I don't want to talk about politics, but desperate not to talk politics. But she said she was locked out of her country, experienced mental health issues, a range of different things, but it's just it's multiple hits that people feel, and when people have a more challenging financial situation, they're trying to keep the lights on. They've, maybe there's been from a health perspective, delayed health diagnosis or family, separation, a whole lot of different things, and so everything feels too hard, and they can manage 1 or 2 hits, but the 3rd or the 4th is challenging. So, I just try and stay out of the political sphere, and I've done a very good job of doing that. But one thing I do say to people when I see the occasional person is just act with care at this time, because you don't know what people are going through. Yeah. I stopped and spoke to a security guard the other night. I have no idea why, but I was in his vicinity, so I stopped for a chat. Yeah. And he worked at the Ministry of Social Development as his day job. Yeah. He was also an Uber driver. Yeah. and a security guard. He worked something like 20 hours a day. His rent was $900 a week, and he got 4 kids, and he lived in Sandringham, and he had to do 3 different jobs across the 24-hour period each time to survive. Now, that's not the New Zealand I know, or knew.
No.
But that's what it is now.
Yeah, and so...
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I certainly think, as I say, there will be periods of history at the financial level. In fact, I'm going back to conversations with my grandmother. But this combination of the hit that a lot of people took at the family separation, loneliness, plus the financial stuff, there's a lot of things going on there. So, I mean, we
don't offer much support. We don't, like, I've been through this, right? So I've had a divorce, and there's not a one-stop shop for dealing with the absolute upheaval that brings in terms of personal connections and finances. It is just a massive change in your life that I don't recommend. And
it's the other part for which I'm actually supporting someone from the former constituency role. I'm supporting someone right now. Often, some families are able to pick up the slack, right? They're able to, but at this particular time, where people might not have that support network, it's particularly challenging. And I mean, obviously, you've talked to a range of people at the mental health from a mental health perspective, but there's a lot of complex things going on there for some people.
Are you involved in anything else? Do you have any other sort of commercial or sort of educational interest?
But I'm just trying to think. The commercial interest in the renewable energy startup that I've mentioned, and that is involved in designing microgrids, which are small, best way to describe it, renewable energy power plants, transfer of energy between houses, good for energy efficiency, good for climate change. Also,
You run a power company?
I am an investor, an advisor, and I'm about to go on the board. I am one person. We have a founder, a guy called Tamatoki, who's a young Māori business entrepreneur. Right. But it's been really amazing to be involved in that company and building something from scratch. I mean, obviously the old job, like, you have lots of people, and I say to people, you sort of turn around and go, oh yeah, oh that's right, that would be me.
That'll be you. You're on your own.
So it's been very, very good for me to be involved in a startup. Obviously, inherently there's risk with a startup, so I'm very careful as an ex-politician what I sort of say about it. But it's exciting in that I mean, as you can see, I'm focused on education and saving the planet. Yeah. And the way I look at it is it's a bit of pioneering tech and what could be helping to save the planet. But also there's some stuff around energy poverty and the way that we might share energy in the future, which could also lead to good community links.
Yeah, because we can do better. We can do way better in this, can't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at Genesis the other day. They posted a $500 million profit.
Yeah.
On the back of New Zealanders, and I'm thinking, how do we do better with this? We've got lots of sun and lots of water.
I mean, I reckon there's a number of innovative New Zealand companies and just the scale of the capacity needs, or what we need in terms of energy. There's going to be a number of companies in this space. But what I'm enjoying is creating something, being involved in creating something from scratch. I'm working with, it's sort of weird, I was a young politician. Now I'm like one of the oldest people in the room.
How old are you?
43.
43.
So it's kind of...
Suddenly 40 sounds old, doesn't it?
It's kind of an interesting experience, but very much, I'm very much enjoying that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to catch up.
Lovely to catch up.
You don't miss Parliament?
I miss the public, but I, for a variety of reasons, regardless of what happened with the exit, I was not there for a long time, in part because of my health. And I don't miss aspects of the environment. And I was in there the other day for Todd's valedictory, and I always said to my family, if you lose the love, right, you need to get out, because it is an absolute privilege to be in there. We need leaders in the Parliament that are hungry for change. And I was not very good. I actually said to a couple of the politicians while I was there, I was not very good at opposition. I like building things. I like creating things.
You don't want to break things down.
No, I'm a builder. I'm a collaborator, and so I don't miss that environment. But I certainly miss impact, and I'm doing some things that have impact, and I'll just keep trying to do more.
Yeah. Todd Muller, it's interesting you went down there because he passed a piece of legislation that actually is quite crucial, and a lot of people won't even know this, but the Zero Carbon Bill actually was collaboration between two parties.
That's right.
It's quite a big deal.
And his relationship with James was very, very significant. And that's the other sort of, again, I'm not trying to sound Pollyanna on it, but New Zealand, as a small country, a couple of people having a relationship like Todd and James had can be incredibly significant.
Personal relationships matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice to see you, Nikki.
Nice to chat.
Okay, good on you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.